Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Backchat. I'm Amy, this is my partner Maggie. Together we are ThinkerThemer, and in this series we look at the last 2 weeks worth of crowd-funded campaigns, whether that be on GameFound or Kickstarter. We both evaluate the campaigns independently. We give them a score out of 10 in terms of our excitement, and then we average those scores and rank them and talk through our top 10. Now, last week, quite a few people actually said in the comments that they were a little bit confused about why we don't always back the ones that are at the top of the list. And I can see how that would be quite confusing.
Yeah,
that is a good question.
Fair point.
And I think last fortnight, it was quite pronounced because our number one Steam Up was a game that we said we weren't backing. And it's interesting because there are a lot of different things that make us excited about a game. Sometimes it's to do with the campaign itself or the designers. Sometimes it's to do with the fact that the game is just like
Components.
beautiful and or there's some exclusives that I want to get my hands on.
Amazing theme.
Yeah, and so we try not to overthink it, but really go with our gut reaction and how excited we are.
You're not going to overthink it, Themer? Thinker? I'll try not to overtheme it. I'm ridiculous. Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that, like, sometimes all of that excitement doesn't necessarily lead through to a purchase because of the cost. That's a big one. So the first one is sometimes we're really excited about a game, but to get it to Australia with those shipping costs means that we have to be really careful now about what we back and what we buy in retail. So often, there might be a really exciting game where we might eventually want to buy it, but we'll just wait. The other thing is that sometimes we can be excited about a game for completely other reasons other than we think it's a perfect game for us. And that was probably the best reason why we didn't back Steam Up. We love everything about it. Love the designers, lovely people, the componentry. We enjoyed the game, but it just wasn't heavy enough for us. Bit of an update. I have since backed Steam Up. Before the campaign did end, we did back it. Have some, I think it will help us get some new gamers. I'm justifying it now, but really, I just wanted those squishy,
Yeah, they got you.
Yeah, they really got me.
Squishy dim sum.
Yeah, they got me. And the other thing is, in that video we said we were going to back Lords of Ragnarok, and I still haven't actually finally put my pledge through. And so I guess whether we're backing it or not, we can only tell you, honestly, where we're at the time of filming. So we'll always try and do that, but sometimes the ranking doesn't align with that. So apologize if that has caused any confusion.
But it's so good to back responsibly. Because I think in the past we have done that thing of just over backing to the point where then when they start arriving, you're like, oh, I must have gotten overexcited that week, and it's not a cheap hobby. It adds really up.
Yeah. And especially doing this series now, it's we look into so many campaigns in so much detail that it's very tempting to just be like, oh, yes, I want this one. But we shouldn't back them all. So, we'll continue to just be very honest and transparent about what we are actually spending our own money on. So now let's get into the top 10 for this fortnight.
All right. So our number 10 is a game called Crossroad Inn. So this time we're going to be playing as the innkeeper. We often have, dungeons, dragons, princesses, and all of that sort of stuff. Well, not us individually, because we don't tend to play in those thematic realms, usually. But this whole game is looking at what about the inn? Who's looking after the tavern? Innkeeper. There's always a tavern and there's always an inn. So in this game, you're taking the role of that innkeeper in the setting of, there's a very volatile... It's very volatile in terms of who's on the crown, the kings or whoever's in charge keep dying. And so somehow, if we get enough fame and gold, we may actually be the innkeeper that becomes the new holder of the crown, potentially. What? Yeah. Surprise! Wow. That was the agenda all along.
Be ambitious.
Exactly.
Dream big.
Yeah. So in this game, we're going to be doing everything that an innkeeper would be doing. You're going to be building your tavern from scratch. You're going to be looking at things like, what furniture to use, how you're going to meet the needs of all your different guests that are going to be coming, because they're all going to have different tastes and things that they like. You're going to be able to make some recipes, which I think that's
what drew me in. And I've got to be honest with this game. I have backed it, cancelled my back we've thought about it again. I'm going in circles, and I want to give you the full thought process. The fact that you are building out your tavern is interesting to me as a theme. And then on top of that, it's all the recipes, and you are collecting ingredients to fulfill those recipes. And in terms of recipe fulfillment as a mechanic, it's not like sometimes it can be a bit simple, but this actually looks like really thoughtfully done in terms of the foods that are included. So I was like, that's pretty cool. And so much about food that actually, as part of the campaign, you can also get a cookbook for the foods that are in the game, which I thought was really thoughtful and interesting as well. And that's what lured me in. Also, there are these scoring conditions that mean that you want to set up your tavern in a certain way. So, having all the tables around the outside of your personal player board or your tavern could be like the goal for that round. I found that quite interesting as well. Unfortunately, I don't think there was a lot of discussion about the gameplay itself. There was very little content in terms of like reviews of the actual game or like kind of showing how it came together. So for that reason, I started to wonder a little bit more, did a bit more research. The designer has made some smaller games in the past. None of that have been like hugely popular. The game itself is actually a board game implementation of a video game. And the video game was made by the same company. And the video game has had a lot of issues in terms of glitches and bugs in the game. And, they've brought on some board game developers and trying to do this a little bit differently. But still, there are enough red flags, I guess, for me to drop my pledge in this case. So I want to be completely transparent about that. I was still really interested about the game itself, and I thought that it was a great idea. I'm just not sure. Or the campaign didn't give me enough confidence that this was going to be a great tabletop experience.
I love the theme, and I love even the look of it. Like I think I'd be quite interested in how it comes together. But I agree with you. I didn't, even with looking quite into it, could not really come together. Like how did you actually play this? And is it going to be too simple? Is it going to be a little bit bitsy? Like what's going on? It also kind of reminds me a little bit of Taverns of Tiathinthe. I can never say
the setting.
it. For the setting, because in taverns you're also, you're kind of running your inn, and you're kind of hiring your staff, and you're serving your guests and stuff. So, and I enjoyed that game, but again, it was a game that I love the theme more than I enjoy the gameplay of it. But anyways, I digress.
Wow, I actually thought you really liked that game. So learning.
I like it a fair bit. I wish I liked it more because I love the theme.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, that is our number 10, Crossroads Inn. Our number 9, or the next game that caught our eye this fortnight, was a pocket-sized or a small box 4X experience. What? Called Age of Galaxy. And now Age of Galaxy is coming from the designer of Age of Civilization, which was a Civ game, which was also kind of shoved into this tiny, tiny little box. And so that seems to be this designer's thing, to create this big box experience in a tiny, tiny box. And it seems like you get a lot of game in this package. All the trappings of the usual 4X genre. So you've got asymmetric factions that you're going to be
whole range of factions, actually. There's 30, I believe it's 30 factions to choose from. But your ultimate, I'll start with theme, because,
sorry,
it's my thing.
Let's rewind back to theme.
There's this new galaxy, and we're trying to kind of become the ultimate rulers, I believe, of this galaxy. And the way we're going to do that is by making alliances or allegiances with all these different factions. And so the way this is going to work is you're going to get handed, I believe you start with like 7 different factions, and then you're going to decide which ones are going to be your main sort of 3 ones that they all, as you said, have their own kind of asymmetric ability or power. And apparently the combinations of all of those powers mean that you can have a very different game every time around, depending on what combo you do. But then with the rest of your factions, you're going to be able to make essentially use them as different sort of resources, and you're going to be able to kind of build, is it cruisers? And I believe that's the spaceships. And go
we don't know much about this world.
We don't know about space, because again, space is not usually our thing. So I'm trying to kind of piece together what I can understand of this. But you're going to be exploring. I enjoy that every time, throughout the game, you're kind of revealing more and more of this galaxy. And then you're also going to have a tech tree that you're going to be developing along the way. And obviously, you're kind of building up your strengthen your abilities. So how far you can go and what kind of things you can do. And so, yeah, there's a whole range of different things that you can do in this. And again, like, I agree with you. It's like, it seems like there's a lot in a
box.
very, very small box.
Yeah. And I didn't realize like actually how tiny it was, because when you're reading the campaign, you're like, and you see all the little miniatures that, come in it.
Space
and it's like,
ships.
how small is this? But then actually it was the Stella and the Meeple University cover holding it in the palm of her hands. I was like,
tiny.
Wow, it's actually really small.
Yeah.
But the game itself is 36 Canadian dollars or 40 Australian dollars. So it seems like, pretty good value. And also you can get the option to get all of the miniatures and the little trays that the minis kind of sit on as a separate box. But I just thought this was really interesting. Probably, again, it's not for us necessarily, but just as an idea, I love this idea of shrinking down big experiences into like a little sampler or taster of the 4X experience, because actually this game only takes 20 minutes per person to play, which means like we haven't had a proper 4X experience yet. And if someone was willing to teach us this, I'd be like, oh, that doesn't feel like much of an investment. In space.
It feels very doable.
Definitely just enough space.
Just a bit of space.
Just a bit of space. So that is our number 9, Age of Galaxy.
Our number 8 is a game called King Hill. Now, in King Hill, this is a 1 or 2 player game. I kind of get the sense that the main intention of it is really like a kind of player versus player type scenario. And you're going to be defending your castle and attacking your opponent's castle, essentially. The way you win is to either, at the end of the game, be the castle that has the most health, or throughout the game, bring the other castle down to, 0 health. The way you're going to be doing this is with like a range of mechanics in there. So this has worker placement, card battle, and apparently the card battle, it kind of seems, and this might be really sort of wrong because I'm not really a Magic the Gathering type player, but I kind of get the sense that it's a similar type of card battle style, because they say that if you've done if you've done card battle games before, this will feel very intuitive. And engine building as well. So there's a lot going on from on the board, so much so that it's actually quite tricky to figure out like how it actually plays fully just from the campaign page. But from watching a couple of videos, it almost reminds me a little bit of again, it's not play wise, but just from the look of it, Lost Ruins of Arnak, where it's like you've got because it's like you've got all these different things kind of going on. You're going to be recruiting different like more workers. You're going to be using spells as well. And I love that they have this like moonstone power, which is kind of like a dark power, dark energy. And what I love about this is whenever you use that, it has a cost in terms of it causes some decay to the land, so it actually impacts on the gameplay, I believe, for everyone involved. So you kind of want to have that balance of not being too greedy and essentially decimating the land for the both of you. So it's essentially going to be that sort of head-to-head battle. I enjoy that with the solo mode. It also has scenarios. So the whole thing is it's not just like a beat your own score. It's like every scenario has its own puzzle, which is quite interesting. And
I really enjoy games that are quite ambitious in terms of trying to connect together lots of different mechanics. Obviously that's what gets me in, and that's what was driving my interest here, was just the combination of battle cards, which aren't typically our thing. However, we've been trying to get a little bit more into some of the like player versus player card games recently, like we're trying to dabble and learn a bit more about them.
Discover.
Exactly.
Venture out.
But like in combination with worker placement, and there's like a little bit of a tableau kind of engine building situation happening here. I really like that, and it does seem like from the people who have played it, or content creators who have played it, that it does come together. For me, the artwork and the heavy fantasy is probably what's holding me back. In fact, if it had have been like any other theme, I probably would have paid a bit more attention to it and might be backing it. But at this point, and at the price point, which is around I think 67 Australian dollars, which is kind of like plus postage, like $100 for a basically a game that is only 2 player. Again, just trying to be rational and like think about responsible and think about all these things. But certainly there is a lot there to have a look at. So if you are interested in that, go and check out our number 8, King Hill. Our number 7 is a game called Power Plants. Now, in Power Plants, you will have a number of different tiles that are different colored plant tiles, and you'll be playing those into a central area and vying for area control. Now, the way that this works is on your turn, you'll be placing one of the tiles in your hand down into the communal garden. And when you do that, you'll be given 2 options to play out. One like special ability on a kind of an adjacent space, and then the ability to also spread these sprites or little fairies in your color that spread out across the garden, because what you're ultimately trying to do is get as many of your colored sprites onto the areas or the clusters of garden tiles that are the largest. So for example, you are both trying to connect all of the purple plants together, but then also making sure that your sprites are the ones on there so that you're going to score those giant amount of points. So everyone is communally working towards a puzzle, but then kind of wants to take that area control element out of the game. It reminds me a little bit actually of a game called Umbravia by Pandasaurus Games that we played recently, which is a similar kind of idea, that tile placement, but then also vying for control. Or Carcassonne, even if you think about it that way. You're adding to this communal like area, but then ultimately you want to be the one person to score for that region. Tell me about the theme, Maggie.
Well, interestingly, you're I don't know how much it's going to come across, but you're a wizard, and as the wizard, you want to have control over the juiciest gardens, because the gardens is where the plants grow, and the plants is where you get the ingredients to cast spells. So that's the whole thing, and so you're sending your sprites into there to have that, through the weeds, and get that dominance.
Seems pretty abstract.
I think it's not necessarily going to come across all that much. But we didn't know what sprites were.
Yeah, we're not familiar with a lot of like fantasy kind of
lingo.
Yeah. And so we did have to Google that.
Yeah.
And found out sprites are like a fairy, like from European like folklore.
Mythology.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. But anyway, this game, to me it feels like quite abstract, but I can see how it would come together and how it would be fairly easy to teach. The company that brought this game out, KTBG, they're pretty well known for creating like accessible games that are quite high quality, but also have that like crunchiness feel to them.
It looks so beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, the components and the artwork, all of it. It's like, I find it very appealing.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's going to look really beautiful on the table.
Yeah, but for us, we're not back in this one. We do probably have a few games that are a little bit similar with a bit more complexity. But it is our number 7, so go and check that out. That is Power Plants.
Our number 6 is a game called The Battle for Thor's Cliff. Now, in this game, we play as Viking heroes who are after gaining the favor of Thor's daughter, who's a bit of a deity in some way, because, but weirdly enough, only one can get the favor. And so I always find it really interesting when there's like a spiritual sort of theme, but then it's like, but only one can. It's like, well, no, the whole thing of spirituality is meant to be like all inclusive. Anyways, I digress. In this game, as the Viking heroes, we're the one that's, we want to be the one that gets the favor. And so the way that we're going to be doing this is by moving around this really cool 3D tile map.
Yeah. With different levels in it. And so the pieces of the map, actually, you can put them together and configure them in different ways to create like a different map for each game. And the way that your character moves through that map is limited by the number of steps that you have to move up or down. So you can't jump from a level 1 to a level 3, for example. You need to be like kind of moving around this puzzle. So you're trying to like puzzle your way through. Ultimately, you're trying to either deliver, I think they were called amber stones.
Yeah, so 3 amber stones, or collect or loot 3 crystals
from the trolls.
Yes, correct.
So you're either going to be helping deliver things or stealing things. And interestingly, when you get the miniatures for this game, the miniature has like a little hole in the bottom of it, so you can actually collect the things and keep moving around. Yeah. And each of the spots where you're going to be stopping your character has different actions that you can activate, but ultimately ultimately you are going to be trying to build up your warriors to then go into battle with your opponent. So in this game, surprisingly, because when you first look at it, I thought it looked quite abstract in nature and it wouldn't have like a battling component. But no, there's actually rolling dice to see who's going to win a battle, who has more protection, doing all those kind of like health sums.
Yeah.
And you will have to use potions and things to like heal up your character. So it was kind of like, for me, I was like really interested in a lot of elements of this game, and then the battling side I was less interested in. But the artwork is really beautiful,
amazing,
really beautiful, and I felt like it's been done in a really like minimalistic style, but it's quite beautiful, and I really enjoyed the way that they explain the rules videos and things like that. I believe it is just kind of one person with a few helpers putting this campaign together. I was also like, it was good to see that they were striving for all recyclable materials in the game. I thought that was really cool. I didn't know how that quite worked with the optional miniatures, because obviously they're plastic, but the rest of the game seemed like it was really kind of thought out in terms of sustainability. I did actually quite like the miniatures, because there was a miniature like as you're walking through, and then there was a mounted miniature on a creature, which meant that as soon as you've mounted that creature, now you can move further. And so I thought the miniatures were cool, and I thought I would actually enjoy painting them. The other thing that I was surprised about is that it's a 1 to 2 hour game. So it looked to me like this smaller, abstract. I think the board was throwing me off a little. It was reminding me of like, the different levels of Santorini or something like that. So, and I think when you add it all up, it comes to about 141 Australian dollars with the minis, which is quite expensive without factoring in €25 shipping. So for that reason, and because of the battling, that I think we have to pass on this one. In terms of backing it. But I do think that if that is your thing, go and check this out. It's kind of like a small indie publisher, and you can tell that a lot of love and thought has been put into this game. But that is our number 6, The Battle for Thor's Cliff.
Our number 5 is a game called Turning Tides. Now, Turning Tides we play is a 2-player game, actually, like a PvP, where we play as a pirate captain of a pirate ship. And we're going to be sailing like ships in the night, but not quite, because ships in the night is meant to be really silent. So the opposite of that. But we are sailing past one another in a really, really cool and unique little mechanic. Because then as we're overlapping each other's ships, like I'm gonna be able to say ships and chips, and this is my English as a second language coming through. But yeah, as we're overlapping or passing each other by, then we're going to be able to interact with different parts of our opponent's, I'm going to say boat.
So the ships are moving past each other, but they also interlock together, which is really cool. So each player has their own ship board, and as they kind of click past each other, they'll be moving past each other as the rounds of the game progress. But also players have the ability to move the boats too, because the way that this is played is you have a hand of, I think it's 7 cards, and across the course of a round you're going to be selecting the action that you want to take from those hand of cards, putting it down and revealing it simultaneously with the other player. And then there's a sequence or a hierarchy in which these cards need to be actioned. And so you will play those out, which ends up being kind of like a programming game, in that you are trying to predict where the boats will be at the point where you activate your card, and hoping that your opponent doesn't change the game state so much that your card has no effect. So there are things that you can do, like you can equip your ship. Your
cannons?
Equip your ship. Is that harder for you to say?
Equip your ship.
Okay.
No, I did it.
Okay, no, you did it. You can equip your ship with cannons, and you can equip your ship with more sailors. So you'll be adding sailors onto your little player ship. And then you'll be able to, of course, fire those cannons at the opponent's ship at the right time, and hopefully take out some of the mast and some other characters, their captain. But also you can use your sailors to swing across and hopefully hit their sailors only if their sailors are the only thing on that space. So there's a few things to think about. And of course you can also play cards to move the ship either forward or backwards if you can anticipate, what your opponent might want to do next. Yeah. And then as the ships kind of pass each other, you'll then be redrawing for new cards, and it starts again with the ships moving past each other. So ultimately, you're just trying to destroy each other.
I think the main thing for me is like that. The thing that feels really cool and unique is that element of the ships. I don't know, like moving past each other, and super that's cool. When you're interacting. Like I love that as a concept. Yeah, and so so that's to be honest, because I don't like battle. Like I've got zero interest in the battle and going, I sunk you, or like whatever it is. And to me, almost like I was telling Amy how it's like, if I were to tweak the theme, I would make it about rescuing. Like you're in a rescue mission and you're rescuing the other, the people in this sinking. Completely different game. And she's like, it would make less sense. This makes more sense.
This does make more sense. Yeah, it'd be like turn over your card. Hi, I've rescued you.
Well, yeah, because it's like if you have that sort of swinging or the interacting with that part, like if you think of it, I'm digressing now. All I wanted to say is I really like that as a mechanic, and I'd be curious to see how it plays out.
It still astounds me that you don't like cooperative games, because you just described what would be probably the cooperative version of this.
Well, no, you could have it competitive, because you could have then you'd have the central thing. I don't know. Okay, you'd all be trying to be the rescue team that gets the most.
We'll just stick to reviewing games, I think. Maybe. Yeah. So Turning Tides, that's Turning Tides. Go and check it out. For us, for me personally, the reveal of cards is a kind of an interesting one, that simultaneous reveal. Like I'm trying to think about all the different games that use it. So many games use that mechanic. Yeah. I prefer that mechanic when there's more people around the table. Instead of just two, because I feel like it slows the game down a little bit. And in two players, I just want to be like quite, if you and I are going to sit down for a game, then it's going to be quite a snappy, fast game.
It's meant to be very low downtime, though. It's meant to be almost like simultaneous, because you're just like picking one out of a few cards and then revealing them.
I don't know, it's just that moment of waiting for everyone to
the 2 seconds of like,
just the 2 seconds
reveal.
Of waiting to choose. I don't know, is there something like for me that feels slow about that, even if it isn't slow? But also, I like the surprise element of when there's more people. Like I think of games like Six Nimit, where everybody reveals at the same time. You're like, oh my goodness, like happen? What chaos? Like
yeah.
Okay. Anyway, but highly, obviously this is now number 5. Go and check it out as Turning Tides. Our number 4 is a game called Karigar-e-Taj, and in India, Karigar means artisan, and in this game, you are going to be an artisan that's helping to contribute to build the Taj Mahal, and the way you're going to be doing that is using worker placement in a common board area to collect the resources that you need to fulfill the requirements for each level of the Taj Mahal. However, you're going to be competing with other artisans to get that done, because the Taj Mahal is kind of a central board as well, where you're going to be filling in, and the first person to do so is going to get some gifts from the Sultan in the form of like other resources and other benefits, and also victory points. And so you're going to be competing to be, I guess, the person to get the most victory points once this Taj Mahal is complete.
Yeah, I love that this is also, obviously it's an Indian designer and an entirely Indian team as
development
well.
Team.
Yeah. So it feels, and their whole thing is like, it's even the resources that are being used are very much in line with what would have been used. It's not just kind of something that's been thrown in. So there's obviously been a lot of thought and love put into this. So I'm interested in it. I think for me, my only sort of concern is in terms of the actions and what you're doing. It feels like it might be a little bit simple or light. I would say.
I thought that at first, and then I was reading a bit more about like there is some interaction between players in terms of, I think the board state does change, which can disrupt like other players.
But also the other thing is you might be doing things that will help someone else's secret blueprint be completed or their secret objective be completed. So that's kind of interesting. Part of me also, like, I kept thinking of the Red Cathedral, and I don't know if it's just because it's like,
you're building
another
something.
one. Yeah, you've got that central thing that you're building thematically, and you're kind of working really hard to collect the right resources to be able to kind of build each one of those stages. So yeah, I enjoy the Red Cathedral. So I'm like, and this, like Taj Mahal as a building, I've never seen it in person.
No,
but it is.
But we also love
beautiful
worker placement, and so any game that's worker placement at the center of it has our attention. I think it's brilliant that it is coming out of Indian development team as well. I thought the cost of the base game was actually quite reasonable, $35 I believe. If you want to jump up to the deluxe version, it is quite a big step up to $60. But with that, you get metal coins and you get all of the wooden resources. And then it feels like if you really want this game, why wouldn't you get that version? The good thing for the Australians is that because it's coming from India, it's only $15 postage.
Oh, that is amazing.
So that is amazing.
Yeah, unheard of.
Yeah, and this is probably one that I am keen to back. I really do love the theme, and I kind of love what this game is about. And even if it is a slightly lighter worker placement experience, which I'm not sure about, to be honest, I have no idea what the weight of this game would be. Yeah. It feels like it might be on the lighter end of the scale for the types of games that we own. But I think that would be kind of good for the gamers in our groups that are like just getting into worker placement. Yeah, so that is Karigar-e-Taj, our number 4.
And number 3 is a game called Titania Ascending, which is a flip and write, largely cooperative, but you also have competitive and solo modes with it. In this game, you're taking the role of I think it's a sorcerer from the High Court of Queen Titania, who is looking to release Gaia, which I believe is essentially Earth, of humans that have essentially become very disrespectful of what nature has to offer. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be first. I find it really interesting that this kind of takes place in 2 different stages. The first stage is the visions or the divinations.
It's cooperative though as well. That's what's really interesting.
Yeah. And so in the first stage, you're going to be reading the stars and reading the runes and getting an idea of what the plan is. And then in the second stage, you're going to be actually opening up gates and releasing your workers or your kind of followers to be able to kind of retrieve some of these, I believe it's like sacred some sort of sacred stones or artifices.
I didn't, I read this campaign so many times, I did not take in the theme of it once. But that's very interesting. Yeah. Mechanically, in those 2 stages, it's a cooperative game where first you're revealing some polyomino tiles, which everybody needs to place them into their player boards. And then the second phase, when the shapes, new shapes are kind of revealed, everybody has to be able to activate them, and there's something to do with the symbols as well.
Yeah, so you have to be able to match this was actually a bit tricky to understand from the campaign. So you kind of have to be able to match the vision, so the main kind of like the main condition, and then be able to fit that within
someone collectively. I think you have to be able to do it together.
Yeah. I wasn't really able to see how the competitive mode and the solo mode worked, because it mostly talked about that co-op element.
Yeah, that was my concern too, is that it did, obviously we don't play a lot of cooperative games. If you like games like Cartographers and you like cooperative games, this seems like something you should go and check out. But for us, we don't play cooperative games, and I'm not sure about the competitive experience. I couldn't quite work it out, and I don't mind. I'm a bit mixed on whether you should offer like lots of different gameplay versions. I'm kind of one of those people that just like, tell me the best way to play this game, and that's how I'll play it. And sometimes I worry that like parts of it might be underdeveloped because they went into it thinking, let's make a cooperative experience, and then the competitive suffers because of that.
I mean, more of an afterthought, not the main.
But it does certainly seem like a nice evolution of Cartographers, or like a bit crunchier than that. Like it seems like a much harder puzzle from what
I enjoy having that first layer of kind of figuring out, okay, well, how am I going to place this, and then the next layer of like, well, now with this a puzzle with the things that we've placed. So I think that's interesting and something that'd be interested to check out.
Again, the fantasy theme doesn't not huge on that, but I think the puzzle would be interesting. I'm more turned off by the cooperativeness of it, of course. But also the fact that there were 3 pledge options. If you have a look at the campaign, the middle pledge option would be where I would back it if we were backing it. I think it was the Sorcerer pledge from memory, but it includes the playmat. I do really enjoy the playmat that we have for cartographers. I like to have my cards all ordered. I find it really useful just to remember how everything like is laid out on the table.
I feel in this game you probably use it even more, because in this game there seems to be a lot more moving pieces throughout the game. Where in cartographers it's just really once everything's set up, it's like one card at a time.
Yes,
so it's almost a bit of a waste of a mat.
But
it's still
so
beautiful.
pretty.
It's still beautiful, and I still would want to play without it if I got it.
Do love a playmat. So I probably would, because it wasn't that much extra. I think it was $20 for the playmat. So I probably would get the playmat, but then by the time you get the game, the playmat, and shipping is around $100 Australian, which is kind of at the high end for, again, a flip and write game, which to me is like a little bit of a filler game, even though this does seem a little crunchier than your average flip and write. So go and check that out. That is our number 3, Titania Ascending. Our number 2 is a follow-up to a hit game, Hanamakoji, Geisha's Road. So we have covered on our channel before the game Hanamakoji, which is a very kind of quick 2-player game, but really famous for its implementation of the I cut, you choose mechanic. And they have taken that central mechanic and applied it to this new game called Geisha's Road, where again, it's 2-player, but now you'll be moving around. I don't want to say a rondelle, but I always think of a rondelle when it's a circular shape, but you'll be moving around a number of different tea houses. And your starting tea house is really important because when you land on your starting tea house, you're going to get some, valuable lantern cards. But the way that you're going to be moving around this circle is through the use of the cards in your hand. And the way that you'll be playing the cards in your hand is that same I cut, you choose mechanic, where you've got 4 action tiles that you get to use once each. And some of those involve taking cards out of your hand, for example, and putting them into 2 pairs. And then your opponent gets to choose which pair that they want to take and the pair that you will be left with to play for yourself. And so it's that constant like tug of war of like allowing people to have something that they need so that you can get something that you need versus, playing the whole game by like withholding, which gets nobody anywhere. And other elements that I found interesting about this game is you'll be moving around those different tea houses and collecting different guests. And so there's a little bit of like set collection where you're trying to collect the guests of the same color. I just thought that was really interesting. But the second part of the campaign is expansions for Hanamakoji, so the original game. But they can also be played in the Geisha's Road game because all that they are 7 little packets that include 2 sets of those 4 action tiles. So that means that each envelope kind of gives you a new core mechanic for those action tiles, which I think is really interesting because I'm trying to think of how many could there possibly be? Like how many different ways can you like cut the cards or like offer them up to your opponent or play them? I don't know. I just found that really fascinating that there's so many of them. I should talk about Hanamakoji. Maggie and I, again, you can check out our video. I'll link to it. I think it was part of Small Talk where we talk about Hanamakoji. It is a game that we enjoy, but not one that we love, which is a shame because so many people do love this game. And I think it does reward the more you play it, the more obviously you get to know it and the depth in it. But I don't think you were like...
It's just very abstract.
It's quite abstract,
yeah. It's just about, then like essentially the numbers and backing the right... I think in that one it's like the right geisha, which is the same as in this one. Is you're a patron trying to back or support the right geisha and manipulate everything else so that your geisha can go from apprentice to full geisha or even owning their own establishment. Essentially.
So I think for us, like the Hanamakoji expansions is probably something that I wouldn't necessarily be in a rush to grab. I'm very happy to keep Hanamakoji in my collection, but I also think with small box games, I'm less likely to think of expansion, like because we've got quite a few of them. So it's just like I just want to get it out, know how to play it really quickly, set up and get going, and not have all this like additional choice. But I do want to really try Hanamakoji Geisha's Road, and I have no doubt that it will probably end up in our collection, but I don't think that I need to get it at the Kickstarter page. Like I feel like it will be a game that will be available in retail.
Yeah.
So we'll probably just wait until we can get it at retail because
I like the evolution of it. So I think I actually would prefer it with this whole, you're moving around, the tea houses and stuff. It kind of makes it feel a lot less just about number cards.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I am too. But for this one, it is our number 2. We are, excited to play it. But I think it's just like one of those small box games that makes it harder to justify like the postage of a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So, again, being responsible, we will hopefully pick it up at retail. That is our number 2, Hanamakoji, The Geisha's Road. And our number 1 for this fortnight is a game that we're both fairly excited about. And it's kind of a game, but also an accessory because our number 1 is the plate game rack that comes with 3 small box games. Now, what's super exciting about this campaign and really interesting, this game, for us, this came out of nowhere, just casually searching on Kickstarter. It's a team out of South Korea, and they've created this system of game racks, and they click together to create, a lot of people would have something similar to this to hold up cards, but they also can click together to create a dice tray, and the box itself is actually a dice tower, which is super cool. But what I think is really, really clever about this whole campaign is the fact that the games that they've included in this campaign are designed to highlight the different functions of their game racks. Really clever.
Yeah.
And the games themselves are not just like throwaway games. They're actually re-implementations or reskins of previous games that existed that now utilize this system.
Yeah.
So for example, the first one, the
Dragon Stripes.
Dragon Stripes.
Yeah.
You set up the
the
game rack to include the dragon cards that piece together to build out the dragon.
Yeah.
So it's creating this, like, it's just being used to create this physical representation of the dragon using a few different cards. In this game, you will be pushing your luck to move the little hero up the kind of spaces along the dragon's tail. The dragon is asleep and you're trying to like creep up to basically slay him in his head.
Yeah, or collect gems, because apparently this dragon likes to frost itself and just surround us to cover themselves in jewels. Gems and jewels. And so you're either going to be going along the way collecting jewels and either being the one who has the most jewels at the end or be able to creep up enough that you can slay the dragon.
Because on your turn, you are pushing your luck. You are playing as many cards as possible to move up, or you're trying to take as many steps as possible along this dragon to collect as many gems as possible without kind of going bust.
Waking them up.
Waking it up and then having to lose those gems. And so you can kind of take it easy. But if you manage to push your luck all the way to the end and slay the dragon, then you get like this huge bonus of gems. So pretty straightforward game. Reminds me a bit of the submarine... what's the submarine game?
Oink Games.
Yeah. I forgot the name of it.
I can't. It's
right
here somewhere.
Yeah, it is right there. That's it right there, the blue one.
Gonna drop the artichokes.
This was definitely easier than...
Deep Sea Adventure?
Deep Sea Adventure. I knew it's... Yeah, Deep Sea something. Deep Sea Adventure where, you're going out and kind of risking the amount of oxygen you have to get back to the submarine. That's a great little game. But this is a similar idea.
Hard. It's really hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
The second game is called
Ada's Library.
Ada's Library. Now, Ada's Library, you're now using the game rack to hold the little book tiles, and only... There's a pattern in the center of the table with the different colored books and the order that they need to be in order for you to win. But the problem is that you have them all in different order, and you need to be playing cards to change the order of your books. But also you can manipulate the final condition, and you can also change the order of your opponent's books as well.
Even swap with them. Yeah. Mess things up. Yeah.
This is a 2-player only game, but I think just by looking at it, it seems like a really fun, quick filler. Quite combative. because you're both trying to achieve this one pattern. So I really like the look of that one. And again, it's showing off another way to use these game racks. The final one is called Minnow Dice. And this game actually uses you click together all of the game racks and it creates a dice tray in the middle of the table. You'd have to probably have like a mat underneath it because there's nothing underneath
very loud.
Yeah, it would be very loud.
It's just really, it's more like a dice fence, I would call it.
To stop them going out of control. So you will be kind of throwing these die into the center and
putting them down the dice tower that is the box.
That's true. But it's actually a trick-taking game using dice, which is kind of cool and not something you see all of the time. And you each have a secret screen and you're going to be kind of betting or trying to predict how many tricks you will be able to win or lose.
Battles you will win.
Win or lose. Because if you predict that you're going to lose them all as well, you get massive amount of points. But any error on either side of like not guessing correctly,
punished
harshly. You would be punished harshly. I think that the 3 games and the game rack were like $54 and for me, I would pay that for the set of games, let alone the fact that you're actually getting this system that you could use for other games. And I think, just having them like packed up in our bag, like just that little box which can act as a dice tower for other games. Or if you want to quickly like set up some cards. Very versatile. And even to the point where I was looking at like how much extra would it cost to get an extra set. I think it's about $12 to get another set so that you can have, potentially maybe 4 or 5 players and using them as card holders. So I know a lot of people will have that kind of solution as well. I just thought this was like kind of a really cool campaign and just the way they've used like the clever use of games to really highlight their product. So I hope they do well. We will be backing this one. Absolutely. We both gave an 8. Pretty excited about those little games.
Versatile accessory. Like who doesn't love accessories that are
exactly, but also like interesting games. So that is our number 1, the Plate Game Rack and its 3 associated games. So that is our top 10 for this fortnight. Not a lot of big games this fortnight. Not a lot of backing from us. So we have been saving a bit of money, which is nice because I think there's some big campaigns coming again in the next fortnight. If you enjoyed this video, can I please ask you a favor to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. And another thing that I would love you to do is that if we do draw your attention to a campaign and you end up going over and backing it on Kickstarter or GameFound, please drop in the comments that you saw them on our video. We don't get paid for any content that we do. We put a lot of time and effort into kind of going through all of these campaigns so we can highlight them for you. And it would just be nice we're not very good at the whole sharing our own videos on like, we're pretty terrible at promoting ourselves. So it'd be wonderful if you could just let them know that you saw it on ThinkerThemer. That would be amazing. Otherwise, we'll be back with more board game content soon. Have a great week ahead and bye for now.
Bye.